I have a very special guest that I'm interviewing on this. His name is McKenzie Peterson, and man, it's a little bit out of the ordinary. He's a financial guy, has absolutely nothing to do with the outdoors, but he definitely seemed really cool. Came up to me in a bar. I was on my anniversary, and just approached me because I was wearing a public land owner T-shirt, a BHA T-shirt, and he just comes up to me, and that's how it started. And he just seemed like a really cool cat, really smart, and he just was really interesting. So he is a very self-motivated kind of guy, which really a lot of the things that we're talking about in this show have a lot to do with the outdoors when it comes to the self-motivational side. But there's some things that he's going to be doing in his future that could really benefit everybody. And I just wanted to not kind of pigeonhole myself with the Primitive Republic podcast into the it's only a hunting thing. I wanted to be able to help as many people as possible. So with McKenzie, this is one of the things that I just absolutely love to talk about. I really do like financial and just real talks. That kind of stuff maybe puts some people to sleep, but we get into some real life issues. It's we talk about maybe some sensitive subjects for some people, and McKenzie was a really cool sport about it, and I hope more people end up thinking kind of the same way he does, because if that's the case, I think a lot of our issues as people can really get straightened out. So I hope you enjoy this podcast, and follow McKenzie in whatever it is he's doing. He, like I said, the guy really seems to deserve it. He seems like a pretty cool guy. So with that, enjoy the show. Real quick though, I'm going to give a small advertisement for Switching Camo. By now, you should know who Switching Camo is. If you have been following me, you know who Switching Camo is, what the company is all about. We at Switching Camo are about helping veterans get into the outdoors and really get life off of their chest. So follow Switching Camo, buy a hat from us, buy a shirt from us. I am a veteran. It's mostly, most of the team members, I think, if not all of the team members, are veterans. I know that the founders are all veterans. So, like I said, support Switching Camo. We're not the same kind of organization that goes out and says, "Oh, we're gonna pay ourselves $1 million salary." Right? No. That's not happening. That will never happen. We care about veterans. That is all we want to do, is help veterans. So I don't want you to stick us in the corner with the rest of the nonprofit kind of people that are doing this, to make a buck on the backside and then showing in the front, hey, we're helping somebody. No. All we do is help veterans. None of us right now are taking any money for ourselves. Follow along with this company. I mean, it is outstanding. Our heart is in the right place, and I mean, our nation's veterans are putting their lives on the line all the time. So make sure you get out there, support Switching Camo.
So how's it going, everybody? This is McKenzie Peterson here on the Primitive Republic podcast, hosted by Aaron. This is real cool, man. I'm glad. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So why don't you give a little bit of your background and stuff? And, well, how about this? Why don't we talk about how we met? Because,
Yes, let's do that.
okay, so I was in a bar. What was the name of that place?
Vine.
Vine. Okay. In Greenville, South Carolina, actually, mine and my wife's anniversary night.
Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate it. 7 years. And I was, anybody who follows me knows, because it's all over social media, I was wearing my Backcountry Hunters and Anglers shirt, and it says public landowner. And Kinsey comes up to me and goes, "Why?" So it gave me a platform to talk about a lot of the issues and stuff that you guys hear me talk about all the time, to somebody who really had no idea.
Absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
No, for
You
sure.
didn't have any idea. So that's basically how we met. So why was it that you came up and approached me for wearing that shirt?
So honestly, I'm big into real estate, and when I saw you with the public landowner shirt, I was like, "Hey, does this mean like I own some land somewhere that nobody's told me about?" Or I was pretty drunk myself that night, so I was just honestly just curious about why you had the shirt on.
Yeah.
And I've learned that going up and just shaking somebody's hand, you can hear so much about somebody's story.
Yeah.
And the way you were just kind of standing there, just looking around, I mean, it seemed like you were having a good time, but it seemed like you had seen some stuff. So I was pretty curious to just hear your story.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming up because, like I said, that's and you do own land that you did not know about. Um, it's all public land. I mean, as long as you're a U.S. citizen, you own it. Thank you, Theodore Roosevelt, for that.
We thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming up and just even talking about it, and led to this podcast and learned a little bit about what it is that you do. But you want to go ahead and get into it?
Yeah, we can dive right in. So I'll just go ahead and forewarn everybody. I kind of do a lot. I wear a lot of hats. I love what I do. So to start off with, who actually pays me right now? Who actually is paying my bills? I work for TD Bank as a credit analyst for the Small Business Administration Division. We handle small loans up to $5 million. And what I do on a day-to-day basis, we look at overall a company's health. So taking their financial statements, we prefer tax returns, looking at those, determining pretty much where a company is financial-wise, and if their business is cash flowing enough for us to, them worthy of being able to get a loan with us. So that's what I do for my day-to-day. But it also helps me segue into the businesses I'm building. First off, my real estate platform, Barker Financial Group. If you ever get a chance, definitely go check that out. We're on Instagram. So with Barker Financial Group, its main focus, or Barker Real Estate Group, I apologize. Our main focus is on affordable housing and creating more housing for those who don't have the opportunity of just getting into that top priced, nice neighborhood. Now, to say that we are going to do that ourselves, creating that environment, that community that's going to look like that, but we're going to do it at a price that's affordable for those who aren't able to pay that. The next business I'm actually building is a learning development platform. So we have a huge problem where middle schoolers, high schoolers, and even beyond that don't have a basic financial education. So
College is a huge one. I mean, look at all those kids right now that are, well, and I say kids, but I mean young adults and stuff like that, they go to school and they spend tens of thousands of dollars on education, and they're like, I don't know who's paying for it, but I know I got this loan payment that's due when I'm done, and it's at 10% interest. They don't even know the interest rate. They're like, I don't know, I got to pay it.
Exactly. And it's a huge problem. It holds a lot of people back. And I think things are set up for a reason. kind of like that. But
Yeah.
that's a bigger problem.
Benevolent agenda.
So yeah, just creating a new basic norm for everybody having a financial education, because that's something that's just talked about in the home pretty much. So bringing those topics to light, so more people can actually understand that all it is just taking a little bit more time, learning few more things to add to your repertoire, and hey, everybody can be wealthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so I love real estate.
Oh
I really do.
gosh,
I
I do
absolutely
too.
love
It's
real estate. I
sexy.
invested in
Somebody
real
said real
estate
estate's
for a
sexy.
long time. Yeah, it is. It's extremely sexy, and it's funny that you mentioned the affordable housing side of things too, because I delved into that, and actually in Greenville I flipped uh, more than a few houses,
Really?
um, and rented out a bunch of houses and all that kind of stuff. But um, w- what is your definition of affordable housing?
I like the way you worded that. My definition. So
Well,
let's
because
just.
I mean, to Donald Trump, affordable housing could be, yeah, anything under 4 million or over, yeah, under 4 million is affordable. But I mean, what is your definition of, and maybe from a financial analyst's perspective, what would be your definition of affordable?
So I will start off by saying in Greenville, our affordable house is, I believe, goes up to $160,000. I believe that's the affordable house in in Greenville, South Carolina. My definition would be it has to be tailored to that individual. Um, Now, obviously, we can't just go out here and just say a house that is worth $200,000. We can just make it $100,000 just to fit somebody's lifestyle. If the world were that nice, we definitely do those kind of things. But I think as an analyst, it's got to be at least 60% of your income. 60% of your income should be used towards where you're living at. And if you're paying over that, then you don't need to be living wherever you're living at.
So that is actually a little bit different than what I understood the affordable housing to be. I always thought that the way affordable housing was determined was basically lower income housing,
Yep.
um, more urban area or really rural, degraded areas, that kind of thing. Um, and so that's 160,000 can still get you a pretty decent house.
Absolutely.
Um, I I've bought some in Anderson for 150 bucks.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Please tell me where that is.
Yeah. Now, if you can call them a house, but technically it's a inner city lot. It's got a house, a roof, all that kind of stuff is probably falling in. But you clear out the house and the land's worth it. And then what I was doing was actually turning around and I clear the houses and turn around and sell the lot to Homes for Hope or something like that. But um, so my whole one of the projects that I wanted to get going and just never got around to it was in the Judson area.
Yes, that is actually a big place where I want to take this platform. That's actually one of the places I've thought about launching it.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm probably giving away millions of dollars right here because, but hey, I'm in Montana now, so, um, one of the big things I wanted to do was actually increase the value in the area. Um, what is the percentage there? It's probably 80+% rental.
I would definitely. Yep, absolutely.
I
That's
mean, it's a very high rental area and very degraded. I mean, it's rough area. I mean, and a lot of people get pushed to that area. Some by their own choices and some by just bad luck, I guess. But one of the things I wanted to do was go in those areas and fix up the houses. Because being from the banking industry, you probably know it's really hard to get a loan on something that is low priced. And what is it, 40,000, below 40,000 or something like that? And then,
That I'm not sure of, but I definitely will say, just as a banker, we don't want to lend on, something that's not going to make money back. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
yeah,
our job is to make loans.
yeah,
That's how we get paid.
yeah, and loan on $40,000 house is, if you're doing a 30-year loan, that's not that much as far as a payment goes. And yeah, over time you're going to make your money back, as a bank, but the chances that somebody's going to be able to pay that off a lot faster is pretty high. So, from my experience, a lot of banks don't like to lend at that lower level. So, what I wanted to do was actually go in those areas, fix up the house, do owner finance, to increase the level, because obviously a bank's going to come in and say, it's all based on the appraisals. So a bank's going to come in and say, no, this house, even though you did all these upgrades and all that kind of stuff, it's only worth 50,000, and that's probably legitimate for the Judson area. Um, Whereas if you took that house and moved it anywhere else, it might go closer to 100. You know, and so what I wanted to do was an owner finance situation. People of, um, you know, work with some sort of a credit program or something like that, and then get them into that house under owner finance conditions, and then you start to create um, your own properties that you can compare to, and you get it put on the market. You pay the money for a real estate agent to put it on the MLS, because an appraiser is going to use the MLS. And once you get 3 comparable properties, all of a sudden it now is the new appraised value. So by doing that, you can raise the income standard in that area and raise the availability in the area, so you can have people that can come in and actually qualify for a loan for those houses, and you could still run your owner finance side of things to help build the area and build people's credit.
I did not know that. I appreciate you putting me on some game.
Yeah, well, it might help you out here in the Greenville area, but
Most def. I definitely will. And that's one thing that I have come to learn over life is that as much as you can know about something, like somebody else can still tell you something you didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely appreciate that.
yeah. So what were you wanting to do with your real estate side of things?
So just talking about Judson in general, that's a great benchmark to use. And the reason like all of my businesses are going to tie together is because I can't remember exactly what you said about it, but it was pretty much, people being run to this area or just, ended up there by, maybe choice or not choice. I think a lot of the times that it's mostly due to outside influences and not having the education to know that ownership is way more powerful than renting. Because there's actually been a lot of a statistic that I look at pretty often just to keep myself motivated as to who I'm helping and why I'm wanting to go so hard. The average white family has $171,000 in net worth, while the average black family only has $17,000. So just hearing that dynamic for me was just, why is it like this? So it probed me to do more research and just see that it's ownership. Like, most black people don't understand that we have to own something. Like a house is one of the biggest purchases you'll ever make. You know what I'm saying? And to just say you're going to use your whole life to rent, like you're leaving no legacy, you're leaving nothing behind to your kids. It's just, it leads you to that point of like, where do I go when something goes wrong? You know what I'm saying?
Well, and usually, from what it seems, is you get the first medical bill or something like that, and you're done. I mean, you've been renting your entire life, and everybody, well, if you don't know, uh, if you're renting, chances are you're paying more than what you would if it's a mortgage.
Exactly.
I would say that's probably a 75% chance. It's probably more than that, but just to be on the safe side. you know? So think of how much money you would have saved by just own or buying your own property, even if you did finance it. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount. My brother, he called me up actually a couple hours before I came here, and he goes, "Dude, I just I just got myself a place." And I'm like, "Oh man, that's awesome." He's like, "Yeah, $1,500 a month, and it's," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Yeah, I mean it's a 1,700 square foot house," and I'm like, "That's not bad, uh, price wise." And I was like, "That's that's like almost twice what my mortgage is, and my house is bigger than yours." And he's like, "Yeah, the problem is, and I don't want to get into his personal situation, but he, income, you have to verify income, you have to, it comes down to credit, it comes down to, a bunch of different. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to getting finance, and a lot of that stuff is really daunting and hard to navigate. So your program, talking to people about their finances and about how to navigate the credit system and all that kind of stuff I think that'd be extremely beneficial."
So when it gets going, the objective is to have people start off with the financial education. So you have to start here. Well, you don't have to. But if you start here, it will lead you into some kind of discount program or some kind of benefit to getting a house through me. So getting that basic knowledge to yourself, and to get through the program, there's going to be an incentive as well that I haven't really got together yet. But once it's finished and you get through it, if you wanted to get a house through me, then there would definitely be some benefits to you doing so. So it's killing two birds with one stone, and ultimately my objective, like I said, is just to close that wealth gap. So I just hope that, through what I'm building, that's what comes out of it.
So you said something else that kind of resonated with me a little bit, just because I'm a curious type of person, and I'm a realist, um, or at least I like to think so. So what is it that you think caused um, the black community to not take ownership? I know this is completely off topic, but
No, it
just
is.
because it's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's totally on topic. Honestly, I really. So your question, what made us choose not ownership?
And you can go as far with this as you want, all the way back Civil War, pre-Civil War, whatever. I don't really care as long as it's, I really don't care. It's just an interesting topic for me.
Yeah, no, and I agree. So this is one of what I think is first off, it's education. It's not knowing the benefits of ownership. That's the main thing. But it comes to, our your great 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 grandpa owned some land, and that land is in a, let's take Greenville for example. I live in Nicholtown. I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah,
with
oh,
where
yeah,
that is.
yeah.
So
It's changed a lot.
it has, and it's a booming area for real estate. My house isn't one of those houses that has not been fixed up, flipped, or anything like that. It still looks the same way it did when my grandmother had it, and even, the person who had it before her. So my property's worth a lot of money to this day. But what ends up happening is, in my generation, the generation my mother, and maybe even like, my grandmother's age, she's no longer with us, but her age, they get a letter in the mail that says, "Hey, we're willing to pay you top dollar for your property." And you get that letter and you say, "Why not? Let me just call and just see what they're going to offer me. Why not?"
A lot of those are going around right now too.
Exactly. So you call and they tell you, you see a figure, you not knowing your house is worth $180,000. You call these people and they say, "Yeah, we'll offer you 70 cash right now." You literally will come to your house, hand you a bag of cash, $70,000. And you get to thinking, well, I mean, $70,000 like in cash. I could go somewhere else, I could do a lot of things with $70,000 cash. And so it leads you to just say, well, it's led a lot of people that I've had personal conversations with to just take the offer. And I wish they would understand that the benefits of, if you needed $70,000, like, take it against your house. It's paid off. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Don't just accept cash and not have a contingency plan. You got to find somewhere to live. You got to change your whole lifestyle. $70,000 ain't enough to do all that. And so I think it goes back to that, just not having the information, and just, taking the first thing that comes to mind and just hearing a big number, which isn't a big number at all, and just taking the money.
Well, you think that might be a little bit, well, it might be true on some aspects, but I think on others it might be a little bit disingenuous too, because um, you never really know where somebody's at that certain point in their life too. Maybe they're at a point where they're like, look, this thing's falling apart. I don't have the money to fix it. Um, I've never had that kind of money before. So this could buy me a nice place somewhere, or rent me a really nice place somewhere, and then I don't have to deal with it anymore as a renter. Um, or maybe they're behind on their taxes, or their medical bills. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors in there too, and I think too a lot of it comes down to education. Like you said, if maybe with white people going way back, they landowners, you know, from the very beginning, it was passed down from their grandparents, their grandparents, their grandparents, and they were actually taught what to do with the properties, what to do with the land and stuff like that. Their educational background was a lot different, at the time. Now I would say it's catching up quite a bit. But you know, starting from that very beginning, what to do with your money, what to do with your property, I think might be something too, right?
I definitely agree. And to your point, yeah, that's definitely, that's not always everybody's scenario, but that's just the scenario I've heard the most, and that's what I built my businesses around.
Yeah.
That's the model that I'm building my businesses around. So yeah, I definitely.
That Me saying that was kind of to protect myself because one thing I used to do, and this is how I found as many houses as I did, is I would drive through areas and look for degraded properties, and then I would search the person, find out who owned it, all that kind of stuff, and then I would go up and approach them and say, of course I would do my research and everything and go look at the property, and once they invited me in, and at that point, and then I would say, okay, I had a background in construction, and I was able to estimate, okay, well, it's going to cost me about this much, this much, this much to fix it up, and then at that point, I would either decide whether I was going to wholesale it to somebody else, or try and purchase it myself, or and go from there. But I will say too, I didn't try. There's a lot of people out there that are predators, you know, um, and they just say, oh well, this house is worth X amount. Yeah, I'm gonna offer them 10 grand, and I've seen it.
And somebody not knowing might just say, "Hey,
Yeah,
10 grand."
yeah, 10 grand in my pocket, not even realizing how fat. Maybe they've never done their budget before, not even realizing how fast that money goes. But anyway, get off on a tangent or whatever.
But it's a real thing, and I mean, no, you're definitely right, and I'm glad you spoke on it. But you're definitely right. I see that a lot here. I've been to a few city hall meetings. I've been to a lot of investor meetings, and these are, I mean, sometimes you hear people talk about this, and they might not even know that there's like what they're saying is just that's not how you should go about it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's just something to think about.
Have you been to upstate Korea?
I haven't yet. I have been trying to go there. It is every third Wednesday of the month, and it always seems like I have something going on.
Yeah. Um, there's a lot of really good people in that organization, and there's a ton that you can learn from the investors there. There is a ton you can learn the hard way not to do. Uh, So I would caution that you be very careful if you're going to get involved. Just be very careful. Yeah, that's not saying anything bad about the organization, but people are people. But yeah, actually, I used to go to the foreclosure sales, and I would sell. I created a foreclosure list, myself and a partner, and we created a foreclosure list for all of the 5 upstate counties, and then we would turn around and sell that list to investors, and we did pretty well at it. Every single foreclosure sale.
That is pretty cool. I'm actually right now creating a multifamily list of
Mm-hmm.
just properties, and I don't know what I'm doing with it or what I'm gonna do with it. Besides like I'm just looking for some multifamilies for myself. But that's awesome to hear you say that you can just sell the list yourself. You know what I mean, or sell it to somebody.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's crazy the amount of things, like if you think outside the box, and this isn't just a financial thing, just in general. If you think outside the box, how profitable in some way it can be, and that goes for everything. Like I said, let's say working out. Okay, well, I don't have a gym, so I can't really work out. Well, go do some push-ups. How about you do a pull-up on that tree branch? Just think outside the box, and it'll benefit you in some way. You know what I mean? Um, if you, I think, train your mind to start doing that more often, I think you'll find yourself a lot more successful in the ways that you want to be successful.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. And while we're on the subject, your mind controls everything in this world.
Oh,
If you think
absolutely,
something negative about anything, like it'll be a negative experience.
absolutely.
But if you're just looking at it just optimistic, it's going to be a great time. Whatever this experience is going to do something better for me in life. I'm just going to go get it. Like that's what it'll do, And it's just that little concept, but it goes a long way.
Yeah, power of positive thinking. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a really good friend of mine. Um, have you heard of the Sales Wolves podcast?
I have not.
Okay, so the premise of my book is based on
Sales Wolf?
Sales Wolves. Yeah, yeah. So the premise of my book is based on one of the hosts of the Sales Wolves podcast. His name is Joseph Caldwell. He's actually a really good friend of mine. He's actually getting ready to go hunting with me in Montana again, um, Montana and Wyoming. And but anyway, absolutely amazing content. You're always selling. You're always selling yourself. You're always selling, and not in a creepy kind of way, but you're always, if you walk up to, some girl on the street, you're hitting on her or whatever, you're selling yourself. If you're uh, trying to talk somebody into doing something for you, you're selling yourself. If I'm coming up and just approaching you and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" or whatever, I'm selling myself. Um, so the Sales Wolves podcast basically talks about all these different principles for self-motivating and just motivational in general topics, sales topics, how to be more presentable, all that kind of stuff. Um, Joseph is an extremely successful guy. He owns a insurance company um, that, and he started it from the ground up, I think 8 years ago. Um, and now it's a multi-million-dollar company. Um, and so that just, and he's like from Black Mountain. He doesn't have a rich family background. He came from humble beginnings and all that kind of stuff, and he you know built that company. And so a lot of people were like, well, I can't do that, that he's just better than me. No, you absolutely can. I mean, it's just, now I'm gonna say he's a white guy, so if anybody out there wants to throw it, well, he's got more advantage. No, anybody can do this kind of thing.
And while we're on the subject, my dad. So I had a story for you. So growing up, I remember this day. Me and my brother were together, and we both went. We were both like, I don't know if you ever had a sibling, but if you go to your parent together with your sibling, typically more than not, you get what you want if you were just go by yourself.
Yeah.
So this was a scenario. Me and my brother.
That's actually a good sales tip.
So me and my brother, we went to my dad because we wanted to we wanted to get some basketball posters and put on our walls. You know, we're kids. I think this was elementary school. But my dad looked. He actually was doing something, and I don't remember what it was. He might have been playing the game or something. But he turned off the game, turned off the TV, and was like, "Y'all have a seat real quick." And he doesn't ever do that kind of thing. So it was out of the ordinary. So we sat down, you know, put our listening caps on, and he said, "Why do y'all want to put those guys on the wall?" And we were like, "I don't know, they're really good at basketball, you know, like what kids say." And he was like, "I'm not going to let you do it. And here's why." He said, "Those guys put their pants on the same way you do. So you want to put something on the wall? Why don't you put yourselves up there?"
There you go.
And then turned around to go right back to playing the game. And we were both just like, huh? You know, like, and that's something I've taken to any aspect of my life is if somebody else can do it, they're just a man just the same way you are. You might got to bust it and, like, you know, try hard, but at the end of the day, y'all are two people. And that's all it takes.
That's a smart man right there. That's awesome. Yeah. Man, I don't know what to say about that. That's profound. So what did you think at that time? Was it like flyover moment and then it hit you later or later on in life, or did you catch it right away, or?
So I wouldn't say I fully walked into it the first time he told me. It was definitely something me and my brother, immediately after, I remember we went and talked about it. I mean, we were kind of mad in the moment just because we didn't get our way. But it was something that it stayed with me my whole life. I've started some other businesses. They couldn't be called businesses just legally wise, but let's just say back when I was in elementary school as well.
Selling drugs or that kind of business?
No, man, I'm in elementary school.
Street pharmaceuticals. Hey, you never can tell nowadays.
Right? But no, man, I used to go to this summer camp, and like all these kids used to have we played Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if you ever played Yu-Gi-Oh!
That's the little cards?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I never played it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So what would happen is the kids would go home after summer camp every day, and they tell their parents, "Let's go buy some cards." I saw this trend happening by everybody in the whole camp. So I told my mom to do the same. Now, I didn't have the best cards ever, but what it was is I read the cards and understood how they work together. So the kids who would have the best cards would come to summer camp, play me, and I would say, "I'm only going to play you if I win, I get something out of it." And this is a younger version of me, so you know I'm always just thinking like, how do I go farther in life? So I would end up taking their best cards, and then after they lose them, they go back, be upset, talk to their friends for a little bit, and say, "Hey man, how can I get that card back? Cost you $10." So
oh, nice.
I was just seeing.
That's a hustle.
So just, I mean, I didn't get it the moment he told me, but I started walking into it from just hearing the words, and just naturally got here today.
Had a street hustle when I was younger too. Yeah.
What were you doing?
So I don't know how old you are, but we used to have this stuff. It was called Crave, and it was like a powder, like a sour powder, and it'd have.
You could eat it?
Oh yeah, it's almost like a pixie stick.
Oh, okay.
But it would come in like a vial, right? And so one day I tasted like Kool-Aid, dry Kool-Aid, and I was like, man, that's kind of similar, sour taste or whatever. So I was like, all right. So I went out and bought like 10 of those Crave things or whatever, ate it, and so I could keep the vials.
Yeah.
So then I went over to the store and I bought, different colored Kool-Aid and what was it? Country Time lemonade mix and like all kinds of stuff, and I would like mix it all up, and you'd have the different layers and everything like that, and then I'd be like, I'll sell you my Crave. I don't remember how much it was in the store, but it was just like I was selling it for just a little bit less, and I said, but when you're done, I'll give you a discount on the next one if you give me your vial back.
Wow.
So I had people like giving
repeat customers.
Yeah, I had repeat customers and stuff like that, and I was just like, I had backpack full of like all of this like self-made Crave and stuff like that, and I mean it was costing me like pennies, to do all this kind of stuff. But
That
it
turnover.
was pretty cool. And then all of a sudden Crave just kind of disappeared. But yeah, I had a
Let me
similar
give
thing
you
like
one
that.
more because I can't talk about this to anybody else. I had a few more, but the next one I think this is by far the most OG thing I've probably ever done, and I needed to quit, but I'm glad I never got caught. So when I was in middle school, um, not too much longer after I started the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I started thinking, how can I make more? Obviously, like you make a few dollars, you want to know how to make more. So, what do middle school guys get interested in? Like, obviously, we started getting interested in getting curious in women and all
Mhm.
that stuff, right? So, being a bad son, but a good son at the same time, my dad had a stash of videos, and he messed up and let me find out where they were. So, I went to a magnet school. So that means that we had computers pretty much in every classroom. So my hands were never seen on anything, but I started a whole ring of selling these tapes.
Oh
I
man.
had guys working for me. They'd show the tape in class. I had a portable DVD player that I got the Christmas before that I was able to just, yeah, you want to see a quick like 30 seconds. Kids are paying $20. They were saving up their lunch money all week to come and just be like, yeah, man, let me get that one. And then, I had a return policy. You brought it back in the next 3 days. Like you could change it out. So I think that was the most I've ever made from just selling something at one time.
Oh, I'll bet. Well, I mean, sex sells.
Did Yeah, man. So that was pretty fun. I definitely learned from that, but not to do that anymore. But at the time, like all I saw was just like,
Dollars.
yeah, and I'm getting rid of these videos, and my mom says they're bad. You
Well, and
know?
I mean, you never think about anything like that being illegal or
Yeah,
anything like that. Um, at the at the time, you're just like, hey, this would be cool. I mean, you don't even know where to go to look and see if anything's illegal. Like the thought of being illegal never even crosses your mind.
exactly.
So I'd say it's pretty innocent. I mean, but so what else do you have going on? What led you down this path? What is it that made you wanna to do this?
What do you mean to do?
To want to help people uh, with their finances and their financial well-being and um, their financial education.
I think it's a lot of things that have compounded together. Um, I can remember specific circumstances that kind of just are in my brain of why I keep going. I think to start off, pretty much my whole life I've been in situations where I've been the only black guy in the situation I'm involved in. So let's just say, in college, I got to a point where I was supposed to graduate in 4 years. It took me five. The fifth year, or I was working this job in college where I would be on pace to making $60,000 a year. I was on pace for that, and that's in college. I'm 18 years old, like making money.
Oh man, that's killing it.
It was, but I wasn't registering that. You know what I'm saying? All I was seeing is I'm making more money than I've ever made. I can go out with my friends whose parents give them $3,000-4,000 a week. You know what I'm saying? Like I was doing that to just feed myself while they're, just so I could hang out with my friends. Cause
Holy crap! What kind of kids did you hang out with? If I was getting $3,000 or $4,000 a month, I was like, damn.
that's what I'm saying.
I think actually, okay. So when I joined the military, I want to say that I made somewhere around like $1,000 a month.
Yeah, $1,000 a month.
Yeah, and then you get housing allowance, and well, not that young. I didn't that young in my career. I didn't,
Hmm.
but I think it was pretty close to like $1,000 a month when I started out.
Goodness. So what is that? 4 weeks. So dang, that's not even like $200 a week.
Yeah, it was. It might have been a little bit more than that, but it wasn't a whole lot more.
But you said your housing was taken care of, so I mean,
Yeah. So if you factor in all that, you know, but even with the military, there at the time weren't any financial backing stuff. So you get deployed, and the first thing everybody goes out and buys is a brand new vehicle. Because
mhm.
all you didn't make a whole lot more money. You hear, oh yeah, I got back from Iraq, I made so much extra money. No, dude, you didn't make anything. You maybe made an extra $250 a month for hazardous duty pay.
Mm.
All you did was save it. And so you came back with 10 grand because you saved it, and then you turn around and you go blow it on a $40,000 car.
And it's depreciating the moment you put your feet
Yeah,
to the pedal.
but those financial management things, that you're all talking about, I think would be.
And I've got a few buddies that are in the military right now, and they, from time to time just reach out to me and just ask, just different questions, kind of along the lines of, hey man, does this make sense?
Yeah.
And just kind of touch base. And it's always good to get those kind of questions, because it allows me to tailor what message I want to deliver to people, just so I can reach more of a broad audience.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt, but
No, you're good.
so you're hanging out with these friends or whatever and just paying.
Yeah, so I'm making this money, like I said, I'm 18, making tons of money. I'm able to hang out with my friends. But supposed to be my senior year, I'd fail all my classes because all these kids are doing is drinking and, whatever kids do at this age. And a lot of them made it out of college, and I did not that year, just because of my poor choices. And so those poor choices led me to probably the hardest moment of my life, I believe. I lost my job making some good money. I wasn't able to pay my rent anymore, so I had to move into a friend's house. A friend was gone for a couple months. I thought this would just be a temporary thing. Ended up not being temporary because, the situation just kept getting worse progressively. And I ended up living in a garage, just putting down a mattress on the garage floor. I spent, I would say, 5 to 6 months in a garage, and every night I'm going in there, going to bed on a floor, just a mattress, and I'm just thinking to myself, this isn't it. This isn't it. And so, feeling from my background, I was, not to say privileged, but I've never had to worry about food or anything, shelter. So for the first time in my life, having to fend for it on my own, I could see a different aspect on other people's lives. So just that moment in itself, those moments in itself are just something I think back to pretty much every single day of why more people need to learn about why finances are important, because living like that is just not okay.
Do you think that, yeah, I mean, because of your background and really not having to worry about any of that before, do you think that maybe that plays a factor in other people, maybe that weren't as fortunate as you were, so they get into a situation like that and they're like, man, I'm never gonna do any better. I mean, why I'm just this kind of person, and they spiral down, that negative thing, and they're like, nah, I'm never gonna do any better, or they start making jokes about, oh no, I'm too stupid for that, or just making jokes like that, joking on themselves, but in the back of your mind, I think it creates a negative wheelhouse, and you start to put yourself down, and you think maybe that people do that to, if they're not in the same sort of situation that you were able to learn from.
I totally believe that. I don't know if you've ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Oh yeah,
but that definitely is
Robert
one of the.
Kiyosaki. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, one of the greatest books I've ever read in my life. I would suggest anybody who has never read that book. It is a short read. It is a fun read. I would suggest you read that book. But yeah, it talks about, and I think this is a thing in the world. But let's just say a father who only has seen failure, tells himself failure, only believes in failure. He's going to teach that to his son,
Mm-hmm.
and that cycle is just going to keep going on and on and on and on. And so it from the outside looking in, you don't get to catch those things, but that's what those people typically say is, I'm a failure, haha, like just joke about it, but it adds up over time, and those kind of things compound. Because like, again, your mind is the most important thing there is.
Yeah.
Like you tell your mind something, it will start to believe it.
Have you ever heard of Dolph DeRoos?
I have not. Who's that?
Okay, so he is from New Zealand, but I actually,
You
uh,
spell that?
yeah, it's Dolf Deroos, I think. Um, but he's a real estate investor. Um, but he actually started out, he was going to college and all that, and started. I think it was like his maybe third year in college or so, or second year in college. He was he started buying property, and he through the mortgage system and all that kind of stuff, he ended up buying a house and renting it out, and he was like, wow, I'm making a bunch of money on this. And he actually went to school to be a doctor only because his family was pushing him to go to school to be a doctor. And so his senior year, he was like, I'm making more money than I would as a doctor, and I'm buying this real estate. But one of the big things and the reason I bring him up, because you were talking about Robert Kiyosaki, is he goes over a lot of the negative sayings that are out there. Like I think it was like in the Bible, it says it's easier to fit a camel through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to go to heaven. And he actually breaks down where that saying actually came from. Basically, when you going into Jerusalem, the camel had to get on its knees and crawl through what they called the eye of the needle, um, so that this camel could go through, and that's where the saying came from. And like he talks about, the different things like that. Stop saying I can't afford it. Just say, at the moment, I don't have the money.
Or how do I afford it?
Yeah, or how do I afford it? Yeah, exactly. And he goes over a lot of the more positive um, things that you could say. And that transfers into everything, you know. I'm big into backcountry hunting. And, if I've noticed that even with myself, like if I'm climbing this mountain, I'm like, man, I'm never going to get to the top of this thing. You know, it just feels like that much longer. But if I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go another 200 yards and I'll take a break. And then I get to that 200 yards and I'm like, oh, I can make it another 50 meters, and then I'll take a break. I think I could do another 50 meters. Next thing I know, my buddies are back behind me cussing me because I haven't stopped yet. And Joseph, this one's for you. But yeah, like, and that's how I've found that I have to push myself is, okay, so I take it in tiny chunks, and then 50 meters, okay, cool. Another 50 meters, another 50 meters. And then eventually, I'll end up taking a break. But, I think it starts with one step, right? I mean, you've got to. There's another great book. What is it? How to Make Shit Happen. And he talks about eating the elephant. How do you eat an elephant?
One piece at a
One
time.
bite at a time. You'll eventually get through it, but you're not going to be able to take more than a mouthful at once. So if you just start chipping away at it, it'll get there.
And that's I love these. I love these. It's just one foot in front of the other. I actually a buddy of mine, we're making a podcast too, but he was saying, I don't remember where he got this from, but wouldn't you rather have a guy who chops a tree one time every single day for a year versus somebody who might chop it, 3-4 times a day, but when he does it, it's just you don't know when. You know what I'm saying? That I would much rather have that guy that's just he's
The
swinging it
consistency.
every day because you know where he's gonna be at. You know what he's doing. He's that one swing that he's gonna take at it. He's getting better at it every single day. You know what I'm saying? It's not just he's hitting it 3 times. He's practicing it. He's winding up. He's got the motion down. That tree's gonna fall.
He's
And
more efficient because he's consistent.
exactly.
Consistently, he does it every single day. He's learned the technique. He's gonna be more efficient.
Exactly. And I love that kind of thing. I think those are fun. Those are fun, honestly. You know, like
Yeah, I think so too.
when I'm dead, people are gonna say these kind of things about me. That's another reason why I try and live these kind of things that I hear every day. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
they're fun.
So, what else? What else kind of started you in all this? You had been sleeping on a garage floor.
Oh yeah. So sleeping on that garage floor was, that was the moment where I realized wealth is important, and I didn't want anybody else to be like me. So that was huge. Where I got the learning development portion from, all the classrooms I was sitting in. So let's just say in college, this was the one that's most vivid in my brain still. My junior year, or I started off freshman year, being undecided as just a business major, and there were numerous amount of, everybody wants to be a business major because everybody's taking just electives, whatever. But junior year, that's when you actually declare what your major is going to be. So then I decided to just go finance specifically, and at that point in time, there was nobody around me that looked the same way I do. There was no more black guys and no Hispanics. There was nothing. I was just in a room full of white guys, 2 white women each year, all of my classes. And it definitely, I could feel that, I felt that isolation, sort of say. I mean, people were there to help me, but they didn't go above and beyond to give me what I needed to probably push myself to success. Luckily for me, I would be the one that stayed after to talk to the teacher and, just always asking questions is kind of my motto. So in those times of just, not to say isolation, but it kind of felt like isolation, there were so many valuable tools I learned in those classrooms that other people need to know about. And just not having anyone there that I could just, not to say like we can't have a conversation, but, at the end of the day, like there's going to be something that's just different. Like, my background is different about your background. You know what I'm saying? So just having that and just being able to communicate it to other people is kind of another reason why that I want to bring this learning into other communities.
That's pretty cool. So, what is it specifically that you think? Which portion of it um, do you think that people need to learn about more? Because there's a lot of. It seems like the people who didn't go to college are the ones that say, well, you get a degree and, whoop-de-doo, you don't know anything. Which is true in some aspects. Life is the best teacher in my mind. But, and I also can say one of the wealthiest guys that I've ever been around, he dropped out in the 3rd grade uh, because he helped around the farm and all that kind of stuff when he was young. I used to sell him properties, and he actually owns entire subdivisions and basically rents them out. 80+% of the subdivision he owns, and more than one subdivision, and he just started out one house at a time and started renting them out. But that's not to say you have to go to college, but there are a lot of really good lessons that you can learn from college. So what do you think are some of the best lessons learned?
Fending for yourself is one of the big ones that I learned. I learned how to be able to, no matter what the situation I'm put in, I will figure out what I need to thrive. Not having to rely on someone else to provide me a platform to be better. So survivability, accountability, not being able to say that this is somebody else's fault. Like everything that has happened in my life has been because I did whatever led me to here. Responsibility. You got to get everything turned in on time. If you don't, you get a worse grade. You get a worse grade that's going to affect you in the long haul.
It's interesting to hear you say accountability. Not that I wouldn't have expected that, um, but it's an interesting topic compared to some of the things you bring up racially, with the accountability aspect of things, because and from what I've seen psychologically, because I love psychology too, but from what I've seen psychologically is you look at different ethnicities and their background. If they've struggled throughout their background, a lot of times they find um, reasons that they are that way, and usually it has nothing to do with the choices that they've made. If we're just being honest, I mean that's I'm half Mexican. I have a lot of family that, oh well, this happened to me, that happened to me. Well, the things happen to other people too, but that doesn't mean that the accountability still isn't yours, right? So when you say accountability, I think that's awesome that you're saying, okay, well, I'm taking ownership for the fact that, okay, this was me. It wasn't because maybe I didn't get as much attention, being one of the fewer black people in the class. Maybe it's because I didn't put enough effort forward, or maybe, name your reason,
Exactly.
you know.
And honestly, that accountability thing, it took me a while to grasp it, and I still work at it every day. I'm not the master of it yet. But I made that decision to say I'm accountable for my actions because nobody's going to be the master of my fate except for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose what happens in my life, and nobody else is going to be able to sit. I'm not going to blame what happened in my life to somebody else. I'm not going to give anyone that kind of power over me.
Well, and that's not to say that nothing bad happens,
Oh, yeah.
because there are assholes out there, and there are people that want to be mean just for the sake of being mean, or for whatever, they don't like this, they don't like that, or whatever. So it happens, and sure, I would say it's reasonable to say, hey, this guy did this, and so now I'm having to pick up the pieces. It's reasonable in some circumstances.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I was in a relationship with a girl and she had been raped before.
Mm.
It is that concept in my mind, that to happen to a woman is just to anyone is the most vile thing that I could probably I've ever heard in my life. And I can't relate to it. And I still think about the words I chose to use to describe the situation, or I used to just communicate with her. And it might have been insensitive, but I really feel that still holding on to it and just giving that person power over you, just looking for them to come and find you to apologize, to allow you to move forward, for you to not just forgive yourself. For you to do that, that's another person. They don't Other people typically don't care about you. And for you to your whole life just be waiting on someone to come and find you to apologize for something they did, you could be waiting forever.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
And so I just, it happened.
You're gonna catch some backlash for this, by the way.
I know.
I mean, but it's true, right? I mean, that is probably one of the most vile things that could ever happen. But it's true to some aspect. I mean, you might have to go through some sort of therapy, some sort of treatment, but eventually you have to put it behind you. Otherwise, you're holding yourself back. Coming from somebody who's never had that happen to them.
Exactly. So I can't fully say that that's how it would be or how it is, but just from what I've seen, I've given other people power over my life before, and it doesn't end correctly. So
Yeah. So, what's the name of your podcast?
Two Sides of a Story.
Two Sides of a Story.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely have to check that out.
I'm pretty excited. So we've only filmed one episode, so I'm trying to get it to.
Oh, so you're doing a video podcast?
Oh no. Well, there's gonna be a couple episodes we do video wise, but right now we're only doing audio. But I'm really excited. We're talking about some good stuff. It's based off T.D. Jakes' critically acclaimed book Soar.
Okay.
So our focus is on growing people's lives and developing businesses. It's literally everything I do in life is kind of goes along to those two things. So just want to talk about that building a business is not as hard as people think it is. It's just
Oh no, it's super simple.
Exactly. We've talked about a few business ideas.
Well, let me preface this. So, I personally believe that there's a difference between a business and a company.
What do you mean?
So, you can start a company,
Mm-hmm.
go to Secretary of State and, file your paperwork. You've got a company.
Yep.
That doesn't mean it's a business. A business runs whether you're there or not. In my opinion.
That's true.
Not saying that you won't have to do something here and there, but for the most part, you've got management or some sort of processes in place to where if you're out handling whatever you need to handle, it's still running. The engine's still running. Maybe not as efficiently, but it's still sustaining itself. So, in my opinion, that's the difference between a business and a company. A company won't run
Unless you're there.
unless you're there.
You got to be answering those phone calls every day.
You are the procedures. You are everything that makes it. Basically, it's a job. Which is fine if you want to work for yourself. I mean, that's just the way it is. Some people just don't want to work for other people, and that's fine. Absolutely great. If you want to start a business, there's a lot of work that's going to go into it. But you've also got to look at the processes that you need to put in place so that the engine can run while you're not there and create that passive income that you're looking for. Does that make sense?
That's totally what it is. And so at some point, I think it's important that you do work within your business, if not to even just understand how it does work. But yes, it is. I would definitely agree that it's not a business until you have removed yourself from it and it's self-sustaining.
Yeah. So that's just why I said it's easy to start a company, but not necessarily easy to start a business. But yeah, a lot of people don't understand how easy it is to actually, and this is going to change state to state, and the different businesses and companies and all that kind of stuff that you want to start. But in most cases, it's pretty simple.
I agree.
Go to the Secretary of State, and you file your articles of organization, and that's it.
Pay a little fee.
Yeah.
Pay a little fee
I think here it's like $110, $120, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, another part of it is
Lost your train
my
of thought.
bad. I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah, no worries. Anyway, you were talking about building business. And all
Oh
that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
So going back to it, it's pretty much just it comes back to it. It's a mental game. If you just realize like, hey, just make that choice in your mind. This is not that hard. It's just this is what needs to get done. you can either dread the whole process or just think, hey, if I get to the next step, I'm one step closer. And I mean, it's just a mental battle.
Yeah, and knowing the differences between the different um, organizations that you can start, I think is huge too. A lot of people think that, oh, I've got to start a corporation or S corp, or and I'm probably speaking French to some people because they just don't know. But do I want to start an LLC, an LLP, or S corp, C corp? You know, am I a sole proprietor, or all of these different things are good for people to know if they're looking to get into something. If you're out doing landscaping and stuff like that, and you're just cutting the neighbor's yard, you probably don't need an LLC or an S corp or a C corp. But you're probably just fine being a sole proprietor. But if you're gonna go and cut the whole neighborhood's yard, you might want to look at protecting yourself with the LLC or the S corp, or I probably wouldn't go with a C corp, but um, something like that, and getting some liability insurance and all that kind of stuff. And so what you're doing and what you're teaching is definitely necessary.
It is, and I mean, honestly, I'm gonna just speak on it because I feel like in pretty much all the conversations I have these days, like it needs to be talked about. God first, God first, and when you carry that with you, you truly you don't have to tell other people about it if you don't want to, but when you believe that in your heart, you'll be led to just these kind of, I don't call it coincidence anymore because there's no such thing as coincidence. Everything has already happened in this world, and but it's just it's like attraction. It's just like you'll be pulled to what it is that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my purpose.
Yeah, the law of attraction. Another good book is what is it called? Um, Damn it. I'll have to think about it. It's right on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, it talks about the law of attraction. A um, it's a fictional book by James Redfield, and basically it talks about the law of attraction and all that kind of stuff. And if you put yourself with like-minded people and all that kind of stuff, you'll start to attract you know all these different aspects and stuff like that, different things that you're interested in. You'll grow, and you'll all that kind of thing. So it's a great book. But man, for the something instant. Anyway, I'll have to look it up, and I'll have to put it in the show notes or whatever. But
Yeah, definitely let me know about it too.
yeah, I definitely will. It's a really easy read. Um, but do you have anything else that you want to cover, or what? Do you do anything recreationally? Not smoking weed. I mean, but yeah. In the
Yeah.
outdoors and all that kind of stuff.
So
This
I
is
I love being outside. Yeah, love being outside. I play the saxophone here and there. I like a good book. Currently reading some real estate books. How to analyze real estate properties.
mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else do I do? Basketball. I don't know if I said that, but I play basketball pretty often.
The Celestine Prophecy.
Celestine Prophecy.
Yeah.
Let me write that down. How you spell Celestine?
Celestine.
Property.
Prophecy.
Prophecy. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a quick, easy read. It's a good book though. But you'll be able to. It talks a lot about the different personality types and all that kind of stuff, and it's a pretty interesting book because as you're reading it, you'll start to notice these different personality types, and you'll start to notice, different doors opening and different opportunities presenting themselves and stuff. So it's kind of like you go along with the book. It's pretty neat.
That's right up my alley, so I'll definitely check that out. I actually just went hiking Labor Day. So I went hiking with my mom, my brother. Just got outside, got some fresh air, just connecting with the family. Uh, like I said, I just car rides. Oh man, I love getting in the car, just riding around and looking at houses. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is, but
I used to love doing that
I
too,
just
man.
like riding around and just going to putting some music on and just cruising.
Yeah. Um, are you interested in like real estate investment and stuff like that?
Oh,
Okay.
100%.
Do you have any investment properties?
I not yet. I
Okay.
haven't done any kind of deals yet.
So if you ride around in tons of different areas, right? And just write down different degraded properties. Like if it looks like and you could have your different levels of degradation if you want. I used to have different tiers that I would put properties in. Um, but let's say the gutter's falling, or it looks like this house needs a new roof, like you got shingles peeling, and maybe the window trim needs to be painted, and it looks all nasty. And the one of the big telltales was the grass was growing up really high,
Yep.
because generally that means either one, somebody is, not to take advantage of somebody, but they're down and out to the point where their lawnmower is broken and they just can't afford to get it fixed or something like that, or it's a out of state owner.
Mhm.
And I had so many properties just from out of state owners, because they get into the rental business and stuff like that, and they don't realize how hard it can be, renting out from a distance. And then you're able to take those properties off their hands for a good deal. Sometimes, um, sometimes 50% of what the value
That's
could
nuts.
be. I
That's
mean,
nuts.
um, sometimes less than that. you
Wow.
know. But generally, I would go based on a certain ROI. For those who don't know, return on investment. Um, and I would have my criteria pre-laid out, and I had my little network of, okay, who I needed to talk to, how much this was worth, figure out how much this house was worth. And it got to the point where I drove around and looked at so many houses and looked up so many values that I got to certain neighborhoods and I would be like, yeah, that house is probably, it's probably worth 180 once it's fixed up, based on what all the other houses are. And for the most part, I'd be fairly right. Um, just because I had done it so much, and through the foreclosure lists and everything, all we were doing was looking up values and how much they were selling for at the sale, and the history and all that kind of stuff. So I knew all of these areas. And so if you do it enough and you just write down these properties and everything like that, you become intimately aware of what the values of different neighborhoods are, where they're trending. Um, you'll start to see, oh, I noticed more degraded houses in this area now. Maybe this is a good avenue for me to go in there and start picking up houses, um, and you could help the area. One of the big ones that we did was, and we were one of the first investors to actually go in there, was the Hampton Pinckney Historic District.
Mhm.
It was one road away from the historic district, and we picked up this house for 25,000. Nothing in that area had sold for more than 45,000. We fixed the house up, and I had friends that are investors, and they were like, "You're freaking nuts! There's no way you're going to sell this thing for what you'd need to return your money." We sold it for 85 in 6 months.
That's awesome.
Total, the whole project
That's
took six
awesome.
months, and then we kicked ourselves in the ass because everybody else had seen. Okay, well, we um, we bought this thing 25. We fixed it up. We sold it for 85. It was like 1,000 square foot house,
Mhm.
And they'd all seen that, so investors started swooping in and buying properties. But we were smart enough ahead of time where we bought the one across the street for $5,000. And the value of that thing ended up going up to like 130.
That's nuts. That is nuts.
And
That's the power of real estate.
the power of real estate, and like you're able to take those little niche areas close enough to, like the historic district. I mean, close enough to the historic district where people were like, okay, well, it's this urban area, blah blah blah, and you fix it up and you're rebuilding an area. You're doing exactly like you were talking about at the beginning of the show, that you were wanting to do, and because you were right there on the edge of an area, you were able to pull comps from another area that was close by, and it just works. But I promise you, if you go around writing down all these different degraded properties, you're going to start finding, you're going to get the bug, and you're going to be like, how can I buy this?
So I'll leave it on a Bible verse then, because again, I think God, the Bible talks about so many good things, but the book of Habakkuk says anything a man writes down on a tablet will come to fruition. So like you said, like just writing it down, it'll make you more interested in it. You'll figure, you start wonder, how can I make it happen? How can I do this? How can I do this? These things have already been talked about, It's been inscribed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's Habakkuk, not Chewbacca.
My bad. I might not have been literate on a little.
No. I just somebody out there is going to be like, did he say Chewbacca? The book of Chewbacca? This guy's a fool. No, but yeah, no, that's a real book. But yeah, I agree, man. Absolutely great. It was great having you on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
So this is kind of a different podcast for me. I do a lot of outdoor related stuff and everything like that. But one of the big reasons I was like, hey, you want to come on my show was because you did seem very self-motivated. You did seem, like you wanted to help people. And that's what my podcast is all about, is figuring out a way to help people get to where they want to be, whether it be financially, whether it be spiritually or whatever. And I'm not a huge spiritual person, but whatever way you want to get there, I want to help you get to where you want to go. So that's one of the big reasons that I wanted to have you on, because you just seem like that kind of person.
I appreciate that. And I'll definitely say from just not even before we even engaged with each other, I definitely felt your energy. Like you might not have been like, jumping up and down in the club, but like I definitely just felt you were a good guy, like you just had that kind of vibe about you.
Well, I appreciate that. So where can people find you?
So on Instagram, on McKenzie, McKenzie _ Peterson, Peterson. I'm on Facebook, McKenzie Peterson, spelled the same way. And from there, you definitely just check me out there, and I'll have links to all of my, all my content.
And what was the name of the podcast again?
Two Sides of a Story. That'll be coming out soon. That'll be dropping this fall, actually. So.
Okay. So are you going to have like one episode a month or one episode a week, or how are you going to do it?
I haven't got.
And this isn't a promise, by the way.
Okay, thank you for pressing that.
I'm just interested in.
So I'm thinking maybe like once every 2 weeks. So
okay.
I think that'll be a good frequency to give people some time to like listen to it, and by then I'll have we'll have a good base of just what it is we're really delivering and the kind of quality, so we're not just rushing to get it out. It'll just be quality.
Yeah.
Because it's a powerful topic we're talking about, so we definitely want to make sure we put a lot of good time into it.
Absolutely. That's good, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you again.
Thank you.